I go through this process of creation and destruction with a lot of my pieces. I think about erasure a lot and veiling. So I like processes that reveal and cover things up simultaneously. The sanding makes like these interesting textures. You can't really get another way. There's this kind of deterioration and history, and you can see the layers. And if I feel like something is becoming too much of a quick read, I'll usually paint over it, and then if I feel like that was too much, I'll push some areas more forward by sanding and paint over it again. So there's this kind of like back and forth process that always happens. Drawing is a really important part of my process too. So oftentimes I will draw into the paintings with paint, and the line work kind of gives me some information to build off of, creating interesting shapes, and I can do some like more color blocking in that way. This is my color lab. This is kind of like where I experiment with color and have all my color notes. I feel like this is like the joy of my life. It's like creating these color combinations and experimenting with all these different lights and pigments. So I'll often create a palette with the color chips, and I'll mix up and match the color to the card and kind of have something to go off of from there. So I usually have like preset palettes when I start painting. Kind of takes some of the thinking out of the process and just lets everything be a little bit more automatic. In my Bachelor of Fine Arts degree at RISD, we had this whole class dedicated to color, and it just became like my joy. I learned more about color than I ever had in that year, and I had to do a lot of exercises that pushed me out of my comfort zone. I was a little bit scared of color for a long time, and I realized as I was doing these different exercises, it was just all about hue for me, and it was so exciting. And I think I have a really natural color sensibility that maybe a lot of painters struggle with, where it feels a little bit more kind of just intuitive and natural to me. And then in 2015, I was awarded this Gamblin Paint Award, and I received every single color that they produce as a part of this award. So I got to really push myself with color and experiment with a lot of pigments that I had never gotten my hands on before. I've lived in a lot of different places in the United States, and each place has its own unique light and just like feeling that comes from a place. And I think about what colors I associate that place with, and that has been a really big influence on the work that I've made in those locations. Like when I used to live in North Carolina, and all of my paintings turned green when I was there, like really, really vibrant greens. And just this is probably like one of my favorite sections of my paints. I really grew to love green because coming from California, I never saw those colors in the landscape. And now I'm super, super interested in red. You can see from this like chart, I do a lot of kind of studies that way. That's kind of some of my research. And so I'm kind of investigating that a little bit more now. So this series in general I often title Precipice. It's a figurative-based series, and a lot of the figures are kind of on the precipice of something. It's like they're in between a little bit. These paintings are a lot about mental processes. A lot of the figures are isolated. There's a lot of self-reflection. There's a lot of this kind of like twisting motion over the head of a lot of these figures, trying to symbolize what they're thinking or feeling. There's a lot of symbolism in these pieces. So I guess some of the common symbolism are snakes. And I think snakes are interesting because they can be symbols of transformation or truth or deception. I think transformation is kind of a theme in a lot of these pieces. So transformation through snakes, through like shedding of skin, or transformation through fire, or transformation through like a binding and an release, or through like something severe and swift like a severing. So this piece is titled Open Letter, Dimension of Justice, and it's a nod to Artemisia Gentileschi and this painting called the Judith Slang Holofernes. So I kind of took that concept and abstracted it. I brought in a lot of this drawing and line that I love. And it used to be a symbol of I used to be a painting of a hand holding a scale. So I think it's kind of about balance and when things come out of balance.